Elegy written in a country churchyard by Thomas Gray. Stanza by stanza critical analysis of the poem. Stanza number 1. The curfew tolls the knell of parting day. The lowing herd winds slowly over the lea. The ploughman homeward plods his weary way and leaves the world to darkness and to me. This first stanza of the elegy presents scene of approaching night in a medieval village when the bell of curfew is instructing people to go homeward and not to assemble anywhere. A farmer after the whole day's exhaustive toil is trudging homeward. The slow movement of the herd in the meadow also suggests their tiredness. The poet sitting in the churchyard is observing the darkness gradually enveloping every detail of the scene. The phrase weary way is transferred after that, as it is not the way that is weary, but the farmer. The idea of bell is repeated with the words toll and knell, another figurative speech known as tautology. Each line in every stanza has 10 syllables, 5 stressed and 5 unstressed, that make 5 beats. That means the poem is composed in iambic pentameter. Stanza number 2. Now fades the glimmering landscape on the sight, and all the air a solemn stillness holds, save where the beetle wheels his droning flight, and drowsy tinklings lull the distant fold. This second stanza portrays the darkness and silence overtaking the landscape. Only the sound of the droning flight of beetle and the tinkling of the bells of cattle in some distant fold can be heard. It is interesting to note that the word save is used in the sense of except here. That is not common in modern day-to-day conversation. Only in poetry the use of the word in this sense is observed. The sentence drowsy tinkling lulls the distant fold exemplifies personification, as the human traits are attached with the sound of tinkling, that is drowsy and is lulling or putting to sleep the cattle in the folds. Stanza number 3. Save that from the yonder ivy-mantled tower, the moping owl does to the moon complain, of such as wandering near her secret bar, molest her ancient solitary reign. So this third stanza tells that the occasional screeching of moping owl is also heard in this silence, as if she is complaining about the presence of the moon near her dwelling, in the tower covered with ivy plant, her secret bower, that the poet terms as her ancient solitary reign. Stanza number 4. Beneath those rugged elms that yew trees shade, where heaves the turf in many a mouldering heap, each in his narrow cell forever laid, the rude forefathers of the hamlet sleep. This stanza portrays the earth heaving in mouldering heaps that actually are graves of the robust forefathers of a village under the shade of rugged elms and yew trees, their narrow cells in which they forever are laid. So this stanza clarifies that the poet is in the graveyard. Stanza number 5. The breezy call of incense-breathing morn, the swallow twittering from the straw-built shed, the cock's shrill clarion or the echoing horn, no more shall rouse them from their lowly bed. This stanza tells that in past these robust forefathers of the village used to wake up early in the morning at the sounds like twittering of the swallows or the shrill clarion-like crowing of the cocks, but now after death nothing can arouse them from their lowly bed in the grave. Stanza number 6. For them no more the blazing hearth shall burn, or busy housewife ply her evening care. No children run to lisp their sire's return, or climb his knees the envied kiss to share. So stanza number 6 tells that in their life, before they return to home in the evening, their wives used to make special arrangements for them by cooking food and keeping the house neat and clean, and on their return, their children used to express their excitement and love for them with their lisping tongue, and they also used to kiss their children affectionately. But now death has put an end to all these simple homely joys. Stanza number 7. Oft did the harvest to their sickle yield, their furrow oft the stubborn glebe has broke. How jocund did they drive their team afield, how bowed the woods beneath their sturdy stroke. So stanza number 7 presents the glimpses of their hard and simple life. It was a real pleasure for them to go to the field with their animal to harrow the hard soil with their furrow. They have reaped the harvest many times. Tall, strong and hard trees always bowed before them, falling down at the sturdy strokes of their axes. Clearly, there is an element of personification the way harvest and woods are talked about, as if they always respected these valiant sons of the soil. Stanza number 8. Let not ambition mock their useful toil, their homely joys and destiny obscure. No grandeur here with a disdainful smile, the short and simple annals of the poor. The poet in stanza number 8 is exhorting that Ambitious people must never make fun of the simple and happy but unnoticed life of these villagers. Nor should the people at great designations hear with contempt the story of these poor people. In this stanza, the words ambition and grandeur exemplify metonymy, a figure of speech in which the name of the attribute or thing is substituted for the subject that possesses that attributes or things. So here, the attributes of ambition and grandeur represent the people who possess these qualities. Stanza number 9. The boast of the heraldry, the pomp of power, and all the beauty, all the wealth ever gave, awaits alike the inevitable hour. The paths of glory lead but to the grave. So this stanza beautifully summarizes the whole destiny of all the human beings of this world. That rich and poor, renowned or unknown, all will die. Death is the leveler of all the differences. The phrase inevitable hour again exemplifies metonymy, as it means death. Stanza number 10. Nor you, ye proud, impute to these the fault if memory over their tombs no trophies raise, where through the long drawn ale and fretted vault the pealing anthem swells the note of praise. So in stanza number 10, the poet says that it is not the fault of these villagers if they are not remembered with reference to some phenomenal achievement in life, like the people whose greatness is praised in beautifully decorated churches. The phrase, the long drawn ale and fretted vault stand for church, where people sit and say prayers in beautiful notes for such great people. Stanza number 11. Can a storied urn or animated bust back to its mansion call the fleeting breath? Can honor's voice provoke the silent dust, or flattery soothe the dull, cold ear of death? So this stanza points out that the lifelike burst and great words expressing greatness of the legendary people who have died can never bring them back to life. Here the ideas of honor and flattery have also been personified, as they have been presented like humans, doing things that usually humans do. Stanza number 12. Perhaps in this neglected phrase is laid some heart once pregnant with celestial fire, hands that rod of empire might have swayed, or wake to ecstasy the living lyre. Again in stanza number 12, the poet says that these people might have hearts full of celestial passions and the extraordinary talents of ruling the nation or creating unforgettable music and poetry. Stanza number 13. But knowledge to their eyes her ample page, rich with the spoils of time, did never unroll. Chill penury repressed their noble rage, and froze the genial current of the soul. So here in stanza number 13, the poet says that the lack of knowledge and the lack of opportunities, and above all, the poverty, never allowed these people to discover the great potentials that they had. Stanza number 14. Full many a gem of purest ray serene, the dark unfathomed cave of ocean bare. Full many a flower is born to blush unseen, and waste its sweetness on the desert air. So in this stanza, through a metaphor, the poet points out that these poets are like the gems, lying in some dark unfathomed cave in some ocean where no one has ever reached, or like some beautiful flowers of the desert whose beauty and fragrance never reached other people. Stanza number 15. Some village Hampden that with dauntless breast the little tyrant of his field withstood. Some mute inglorious Milton here may rest. Some Cromwell guiltless of his country's blood. So here in this stanza, the poet says that some among these villagers who are now lying dead might have possessed the courage like Hampden, a politician of Charles I's era, who bravely raised his voice against the injustices of his times. Someone might have been as inspired a poet as Milton, or might have been as daring as Oliver Cromwell, a great parliamentarian who overthrew Charles I's reign. Stanza number 16. The applause of listening senates to command, the threats of pain and ruin to despise, to scatter plenty over a smiling land, and read their history in a nation's eye. So in stanza number 16, the poet says that all these great people like Hampden, Milton, and Cromwell benefited the nation with their great potentials, scorning all the threats of pain and ruin. This is why history remembered them with great respect and awe. Stanza number 17. Their Lord forbade, nor circumscribed alone, their growing virtues, but their crimes confined, forbid to wade through slaughter to a throne, and shut the gates of mercy on mankind. So in stanza number 17, the poet says that the circumscribing fortune of these villagers stopped them from displaying their good or bad potentials. Thus, if they could not do anything great, they are also saved from doing heinous crimes like shedding the blood of innocent people for power and pelf. Stanza number 18. Struggling pangs of conscious truth to hide, to quench the blushes of ingenuous shame, or heap the shrine of luxury and pride with incense kindled at the muse flame. So in this stanza, the poet says that if these people might have lived up to their full potentials, they might have suffered the pangs of conscience for doing wrong things, for hiding truth, or for flattering through their art the so-called great people of their times, who in reality were very mean miscreants. Stanza number 19. Far from the madding crowd's ignoble strife, their sober wishes never learned to stray. Along the cool sequestered of life, they kept the noiseless tenor of their way. So in this stanza number 19, the poet says that it was the blessing of God upon them that far from the atmosphere of city life, where people are madly engrossing in struggles for power, wealth and fame, these villagers lived a simple and happy life, being undisturbed by the ambitions that lead people astray. So when we look at the substance of this poem, we find that in this thought-provoking and deeply influencing philosophical poem, Thomas Gray reflects upon the fate of the forefathers of the far-off small village, who had long passed away and are now lying in their graves. Contemplating in the country churchyard, the poet philosophizes that we should not mock or ridicule the simple and unnoticed life of these people, as they also might have been exceptionally talented and might have dazzled the world with their great potentials if the chill penury and lack of knowledge and opportunities had not restricted their lives to this remote little village. He believes that there was a blessing even in this form of life for them. Though, as per the standards of the world, they could not accomplish great feats because of their penury and lack of knowledge, they were also saved from committing many wrongdoings, injustices and atrocities that could have incurred them God's wrath. Many people can't help committing sinister and obnoxious things when fate grants them an opportunity to make full use of their potentials. In fact, these villagers enjoyed perfect health, happiness, peace of heart and mind, and all sorts of homely joys that are the dreams of all humans in this world. Coming to the language of this poem, we find that for the most part, Gray has adopted an ornate style in this poem. Certainly, this embellished use of language is a rare aesthetic experience for a reader. From time to time, he comes out with a line that derives its power and force from masterly simplicity. It helps us to feel a contrast between the plain and ornate style of the language. It is because of the beauty and picturesqueness of language that many of its lines are as familiar as proverbs. A touch of moderate alliteration in almost every line makes the poem pleasant and free-flowing in reading. So, coming to imagery of the poem, we find that the poem is profusely rich with figurative language. The very first line begins with tautology, as the idea of the ringing bell is repeated in the words tall and knell. Then in the third line, transferred epithet is employed by the idea of weary way, because actually it is farmer who is weary, not the way. In stanza number 8, the words ambition and grandeur are the examples of synecdoche, as they actually stand for the people who possess these qualities. While talking about the sound effect, we find that each line of the poem is in iambic pentameter. That means there are 10 syllables in each line, and every stressed syllable is followed by an unstressed syllable that creates an exquisite cadence when the poem is read loudly. Almost at the center of every line, the reader has to make a soft pause, and the remaining line fluently ends, making the reader ruminate at the idea the poet is presenting. This imparts a contemplative tone to the poem. The more we recite this magnum opus of Thomas Gray, the more we are mesmerized by its beauty. While coming to the most striking lines of this poem, we find that every line of this poem is like a jewel, and most of them are as familiar as proverbs, like the paths of glory lead but to the grave. But to me, stanza number 14 has the most telling lines. It can be called the theme of this elegy. Through the metaphor of the gem and ocean and that of the flower and the desert, the poet suggests that many humans of immense qualities and great potentials live in this world, but due to their lack of opportunity or some other hindrance, they remain obscure and unnoticed in this world, like a flower that